No matter how much evidence keeps piling up, there is still no evidence as far as the loyalists are concerned. Here's Congressman Dan Goldman telling the IRS whistleblowers on Hunter Biden this week they have shown no corrupt connection to Joe.
So you not only have no direct evidence connecting Joe Biden to any of Hunter Biden's business deal, you actually had proof that he wasn't involved.
And he says this while simultaneously dismissing a corrupt connection to Joe, because Hunter was only sitting next to Joe. They weren't actually discussing anything while Hunter was texting a Chinese businessman and Communist Party leader, "You better pay me or my dad is going to beat you up." And he's done a lot of push-ups lately.
The only thing it says about it is that Hunter Biden was sitting with his father. It does not say anything about discussing any business.
See, the threat apparently was not that Hunter would get his dad to punish this Chinese official. The threat was just that Hunter would sit and stew about it silently right next to his dad until Joe asks him what's wrong, and Hunter says nothing and just scurries off to his room to write a super secret diary entry. Likewise, you have to live in a world of such ideological seclusion to deny the stacking evidence of Hunter and Joe corruptly imposing their influence on foreign interests, selling out America for their own personal financial gain. Because even if you believe that the case isn't direct or conclusive, as Dan Goldman argues, well, as with any other criminal suspicion, a mountain of circumstantial evidence is still sufficient to convict, or at least to inquire. If we witness a guy in a ski mask running down the street with money bags, and then we see there's an alarm going off at the bank 2 blocks down, we lack direct evidence. That's circumstantial. But perhaps it's reasonable to infer that a robbery was committed and maybe ask a few more questions. And doing so has produced more evidence still in this case. For months, Congress and the FBI have been in a standoff over the release of an FBI informant file, a report from a trusted FBI source detailing an allegation that Joe Biden personally took bribes from a foreign actor while he was vice president. The House Oversight Committee subpoenaed the FBI to get this record. The FBI refused to comply, saying any release would be a security risk. Under threat to hold FBI Director Christopher Wray in contempt, the Bureau finally agreed to surrender a redacted version of the document to the Oversight Committee. And then on Thursday, in a move he says is in the interest of transparency, of the public's review of these allegations without the filter of politicians or bureaucrats, Senator Chuck Grassley released the document for everyone to see. The document details a personal testament to claims that, as usual, were considered yesterday's conspiracy theories, now looking more and more true, about corruption between Hunter Biden and the Ukrainian energy company Burisma. Claims that Burisma put Hunter Biden on the company board in 2014 for the sole purpose of building a relationship with Joe and using the Biden influence to clean up legal messes for the company, according to this account, giving them each $5 million in intentionally concealed payments the company CEO would later say were coerced. All of this according to a confidential human source, or CHS for the FBI, whose identity remains unknown. This source had personal conversations with the parties in question starting in 2016 and filed this particular report in June of 2020, of course, in the height of a campaign season during which we were all told that these claims had absolutely no evidence to back them, except for this evidence of which the FBI was in possession. In late 2015 and early 2016, Burisma was looking for a way to enter the American market to make an IPO, an initial public offering, to sell company stock in the US. But the problem for the company is they were facing investigation by the Ukrainian government's prosecutor general, Viktor Shokin. This FBI source met with company leadership about their efforts to enter the American market, but to do that, the company needed their legal issues to go away. And so this source says that company leadership, including CEO Mykola Zlochevsky and CFO Vadim Pojarski, said they hired Hunter and brought him onto the board and paid him $50,000 a month for the purpose of protecting the company through his dad from all kinds of problems. Discussing how the Ukrainian government's investigation may hinder Burisma's entry into the U.S. market, Zlochevsky said, quote, "Don't worry, Hunter will take care of all those issues through his dad." When the source advised the company instead to hire an attorney to litigate the matter in Ukraine, Zlochevsky said, "Well, we already paid $5 million to one Biden and another $5 million to the other Biden," referring to both Hunter and Joe. Zlochevsky said these payments were made with intentional concealment and that it would take even skilled investigators 10 years to find any record of them. He described these payments as получuli, excuse assuredly incorrect pronunciation, but that is apparently Russian crime slang for forced or coerced to pay. Not clear what exactly would be the penalty for non-compliance. And just in case you have any doubts, the source understood Zlochevsky to mean, yes, we paid the Bidens for the sole purpose of dealing with Viktor Shokin, the Ukrainian prosecutor. And no, Hunter Biden didn't have any utility to the company otherwise. Zlochevsky said his dog was smarter than Hunter, but of course, his dog doesn't have influence over U.S. levers of power like Hunter does. But that is just one man's story, and there's no doubt you'll hear it dismissed as such. That's just a fairy tale, deservedly collecting dust in some FBI basement filing cabinet somewhere. But the fact of the matter is, this isn't just some story from some guy. It is the testimony of a source the FBI has trusted for years and paid tens of thousands of dollars for years, and considers highly credible thanks to a long career of collecting reliable intelligence. And you may not trust the FBI, rightfully so. I don't, but we don't have to. There is plenty of other evidence in the pattern in which this claim fits. First of all, the intended consequence happened. In March 2016, right on cue, that inconvenient prosecutor, Viktor Shokin, was fired, and later, Joe Biden himself openly described how he personally threatened to withhold U.S. aid unless that happened.
I said, "You're not getting the $1 billion. I'm going to be leaving here." And I think it was, 6 hours? I said, "I'm leaving in 6 hours. If the prosecutor's not fired, you're not getting the money." Oh, son of a bitch. Got fired.
But that was actually fighting corruption. That's what you're supposed to believe. Because after all, the prosecutor, Viktor Shokin, was the corrupt one. So it's good that we got rid of him. Never mind, that theory has no explanation for why Hunter Biden was even involved at all. There's also the notable use of the nickname the big guy in these allegations. The source says Zlochevsky used that name to refer to Joe, which would be consistent with the use of that term in other corrupt Hunter Biden business emails recovered from his laptop. That prior famous 2017 big guy email is in the context of a Chinese business deal, and of course, these FBI informant allegations fit a pattern of behavior also demonstrated there too. The Dan Goldman designated nothing burger of Hunter texting Raymond Zhao, likewise a Chinese energy executive, that he better pay up or else, selling Biden influence to foreign interests for personal gain in this situation as well. There is also the testimony of the IRS whistleblowers who noted before Congress this week that the Bidens have raked in over $17 million from foreign sources, including Ukraine and Burisma Holdings specifically. It is currently unknown exactly what clearly normal and non-corrupt services we're supposed to believe explain these payments. At Wednesday's hearing, these whistleblowers strongly implied they have additional evidence to support this FBI informant's claims, but under federal law, they are not at liberty to discuss confidential taxpayers' information, at least publicly, though they could turn it over to Congress. And apparently, the informant has, or at least had, some tangible evidence himself, too. We don't have to just believe him. We could ask him for his documentation, which he says includes 17 recordings of both Hunter and Joe and bank records to demonstrate the scheme. Why we don't have these records already is its own separate scandal, and the apparent reason is because the FBI had no interest in them. There was no follow-up. There was no ask for these documents or recordings. The FBI just buried the story in the basement and told us publicly that any hints of it elsewhere were just Russian disinformation. So given all of that dismissed opportunity for information, and given that the information is still slowly getting revealed despite the prior years of indifference to it, even if we take that Dan Goldman claim that there is no evidence seriously, well, is that because no evidence exists, or is that because there's been a deliberate cover-up? Impossibly, the guy says that all of this is a double standard of justice against Hunter Biden, actually.
I'm shocked that Hunter Biden was even charged with these crimes. The fact that he's even taking a plea deal, in my mind, demonstrates a two-tiered system of justice against Hunter Biden, not at all in favor of Donald Trump or the Republicans.
The first impeachment was on the allegation that Donald Trump improperly threatened to withhold foreign aid unless Joe Biden was investigated. That was a high crime worthy of the circus at the time. There is now a mountain of evidence to say that Joe Biden actually did that himself as vice president, but to a worse degree, not for a political advantage, as was accused against Trump, but for personal enrichment, selling out American interest and money to pad his own bank account. And with double irony, it now looks a lot like what Trump wanted investigated was in fact highly suspicious and quite likely criminal. So was the impeachable offense 4 years ago actually a betrayal of the country, or was it just getting too close to uncovering theirs? Given the absolute hypocrisy and the total lack of concern for serious allegations of the same crime, only worse here, it's hard to argue there's more than one reasonable answer, but I'll believe otherwise only when I see Adam Schiff and Jerry Nadler and the rest of the clown car lining up to be impeachment managers this time just as eagerly as they did last, or at least nervously and urgently waddling and certainly not crapping their pants with the same enthusiasm. I just want some consistency. The depends are optional. Thanks as always for listening and for supporting this channel. Always appreciate that thoughtful discussion down below, and especially over on Minds, that is at ML Christiansen. You're always welcome to coming out and chat in my live streams. Those are linked down in the description. Looking forward to it.